Good.
I wish you guys watch.
Okay, well, let's get started. And I want to welcome Lisa Deergarden. And Lisa works for Ray and Associates. She's a graduate of the Ohio State University. And she and Ray and Associates did a cybersecurity analysis for our church and our staff. So that's how we met.
Yes.
And she is a very kind and gracious person and an expert. So we are just so thankful that she's here and sharing her wisdom. I told some of you that our chief of police in Worthington says this is the #1 crime in Worthington is scamming senior citizens, taking advantage of them, taking their money because of their trust. And so we want to keep ourselves safe, our church safe, and our friends and loved ones, neighbors, everyone. So there will be lots of wisdom today we can share with others. And it's being recorded. It'll be on our church YouTube channel. So we can invite others to watch too. But thank you so much.
You're welcome. I'm happy to be here. Great crowd. Glad to have everyone here. So am I on?
You sure are.
My turn?
Yeah, yeah.
Okay. So like you said, I came in and so I am a cybersecurity consultant at Ray, and I'm on the governance, risk and compliance side, which basically means that I go out and I'm looking for the controls that are in place. Controls mean passcodes, where I'm storing my data, and making sure that those things are in place to protect the information that they're securing. So let's think of it from the church perspective. Why is the church, what as a church, what are we trying to protect as our church? Right? I'm trying to protect your information, right? As a congregation, any information that you're giving to the church, I don't want that information to get out to anyone else. Most of it then on the church side though is also financial, right? We don't want people to know the financial standings of the church or be able to get in and be able to take any of that money or be able to scam me. So, oh, I kind of got off, but so that's kind of what I did when I came in. And really that's my goal was we put it against in this cybersecurity framework. It's a huge framework. You come in, you look at like 100 and some controls. Do we have them in place? Do we not? Where are we at? And how are we going to grow? And then I'm going to go to mission and purpose.
Okay. Beautiful.
Yeah. So, and that's when he was talking about building relationships, that was kind of my goal is to educate and build meaningful relationships. And what I try to do on top of that is just have some fun. I mean, it's really at this stage of my career, I'm looking at having more fun and enjoying what I do. So that's why it's important, even at a church level, even at an individual level. I think the next one, if you go, that tells you a little bit about the governance, risk compliance. Governance is, so when I was out talking to the church, although you're using certain vendors, the church and the church body and the leadership is still responsible for making sure that the people making the decisions are making the right ones, right? So that's the governance piece of it. And then the risk is, it takes a lot of money to secure your information and a lot of time to secure your information. So is the risk of the threats that are coming into the organization worth that money and time, or do I have it covered? And that's where we determine how much we do and how much we need to know on what we do. Like when I talk to you about things that we can do to secure our data, well, you might be thinking, that doesn't pertain to me. I don't have that type of account. I don't have that information. So you might not need to do everything that I'm suggesting, but it might be if you do have some of that data that you're trying to protect. That's where the risk comes in. We won't talk much about compliance. Compliance is more on But it would affect you, like, you guys all know when you go out and you're at your healthcare provider, you're signing that HIPAA form, right? And basically they're trying to make sure that that form says that they only give information to people that are designated to have that. So that's more on the compliance side, and gets pretty deep. So from a business level, that's kind of what I do and who I am. But really more from an individual level, this is kind of where I think about my importance and where I fit in, is the R3. I think if you need to be ready, you need to be reliable, and you need to be resilient. And I think of that from an individual level. And if an individual are those three things, then a business can be, a community can be, our all can be. But it really starts, if you go back and look at how most businesses, or like he said, people are compromised, it's the human heart that's making those choices. And every single time, it's like 82% of all businesses, if you're getting compromised because of an individual just making a mistake, right? So it's really important that we're ready for something to happen, we're reliable when it does happen, and then you're resilient afterwards. And even just think about that from, if somebody did get into your computer, do you know where to call, who you would call, what you would do? And that's really the resilient factor of it, is if I did make a mistake, how can I bounce back from being there? So that's kind of my brand. I always talk about R3, ready, reliable, and resilient. Now, this is a really high level concept, but I think it's so easy when you're talking about cybersecurity, that you look at just these three circles, right? I deal in the risks. So we have threats that are out there, you have the assets, and then you have the vulnerabilities. And you're like, Lisa, we're supposed to be talking about scams, you're a little too high level. But think about this. So let's talk about what's our threats every day. Anybody want to tell me who's our threat for cybersecurity? What's a threat to us?
Somebody's going to take your social security number and.
Okay, a bad actor, right? Somebody who, those are our threats. What about just knowledge that we have? Things that we don't know, right? We may not know that the education is not there, and or even maybe people we've allowed to take care of our finances or take care of our that third party, right? That we're trusting to make sure that they're taking care of our data that may not be, right? So that's kind of a threat. So what are our assets? What would you think are your assets that you're trying to keep safe?
Well, financials,
Financials, yes.
but also, and I can say this because I had this experience, like everything you have stored on your computer,
Yeah.
that I mean, there's ransomware that can be stolen. You
Right.
lose everything.
So you have of them just wiping you out and you not having any memories. So you want to say photos are kind of an asset, your memories, your life, your financials, right? Your social security number, your tax information, maybe how much you're worth. Any other data though that you want to?
I've had twice in the last 4 months, when I look at my credit card bill, I've had things that I didn't pay for, didn't approve. And so the credit card company reimbursed me, sent me a new credit card, and they said, this happens all the time. And so that's been a problem for me.
Yep, so credit card information that they're trying to, and really your passwords.
Yeah.
Passwords, they want your passwords because they might not do anything with them today. Let's wait, right? Just goes on a big database. And then, somebody will buy it and then they'll try to use it. I mean, it is big. I try to stay away from the fear, uncertainty, and doubt, right? Because especially being in this industry has really opened my eyes, and I think it's a bad actor way too often. Like I saw a person crossing the street with their badge, I'm like, if I have a badge scanner, I could walk up and when that person's in line, I could scan that badge and then I could get into that building. That's the kind of things that you will not believe what people will go to find information about you. And if you're not a target, then you're fine. But it's when you become on somebody's radar and they know, or they've done the research that you have the assets that they're looking for. Or maybe it's not even you that has that asset they're looking for. Maybe it's somebody in your family and they're going to use you to get to them, right? So you have to ask, and it's really hard to sit, especially I'm here at church, right? And the gentleman that comes in that might not look like he or she belongs, and you're supposed to go up to them and be nice to them and be kind and trusting, and you're a Christian. So I think that's a real challenge for those of us because you want to trust. So all I can tell you is trust but verify, right? Be kind, but if somebody's asking you for too much information, then you just have to take a step back, understand why they want that information, what do we do? And that comes into play too, like we talked about from a church perspective. The assets for the church are all your information in this congregation, right? How are we keeping all of that private? What could I do? For example, I got a message, my son hasn't been in youth group, son or daughter has not been with this youth group minister for probably 4 years now. And I got an email from him about 6 months ago saying, hey, look at all these pictures that we just took.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
So what they're doing is trying to get me to click on that link so that I would, and I only caught it because you can go up and you can look at the email, said it came from the name I was expecting, but then if I dragged over to the email address is different. So everything that you guys think would be coming from the church, right? If I came in there and I got everybody's emails and then I sent out a mass email to everyone, could I trick some of you guys into making a donation that maybe didn't even come from the church?
That actually happened. Julia's, Pastor Julia's email account was hacked. And it looked like, it's been a couple of years, I think, but the email looked like, well, yeah, Julia would say that. But I don't know why I didn't respond, but there was just something a little bit funky about it.
Yep.
And then she sent a legit email out, so.
Yeah, one thing that I noticed in that email was there was poor grammar. I thought Julie would not have typed that. And then sometimes I think one of those was asking for gift cards. And when somebody followed up, somebody from our congregation, then Julia was asking, can you give me the code on the gift card? And, don't do that. No one on staff will be, in London or Paris stranded, needing you to send us money immediately or needing you to send us gift cards. You'll get those sorts of things from our e-blast, from the bulletin, but not from a pastor with poor grammar.
And that's another thing. So you set policies or procedures so you know that this is how we would communicate from the church, right? And so you know what to expect and how to expect that information. I know one of the things we talked about though too is like when you're calling and I want to know somebody's, and I do it at my church, right? If there's somebody in my congregation, I might not know their name or address or phone number, so I might call in and ask for that information. Well, it used to be, wouldn't think a second thought about it. Well, now, what should your process and procedures be? And then you have to understand as a congregation not to be offended if I don't give you that information, right? I know another thing that we struggled with was physical security, right? People who come into the church always had keys. I used to have a key when I was teaching Sunday school. Well, did I give my key up when I needed to? Probably no, because I like having that access. but I should have, right? Because it's a risk to the church. If you don't need the key and you have it, then you need to return it. But for some people, that's really hard to do because it's my church. I want to have access to it. So I think there's some things that are a challenge for those of us who want to welcome everybody in and be welcoming, but not increasing the risk to the church. So those are things that I think are what we kind of talked about when we were doing the risk assessment. I thought I'd bring that up because it was really good conversation with the staff that we were having. Okay, so then the vulnerabilities piece of it. So what are our vulnerabilities? That would be the controls that we have in place. don't
Not
have in
knowing
place.
enough about, like, I'm not real comfortable with the computer. I will usually call my daughter over and say, is this, is this something? And she'll say, no, because I signed up for PayPal and I'm getting all these things saying, you're overdoing it, or we've changed some things about it.
Yeah.
Yesterday, I got one saying somebody's name is challenging me that I didn't pay her bill. Well, I don't pay anything with PayPal, but and they say, like IRS won't either call or write,
Right.
but now everything's coming either over the computer, writing, calling. So how do you know who to believe? I mean, and are you ignoring someone? Am I deleting IRS saying they're gonna audit me? No, I don't know,
Yeah,
The IRS will never call.
but will they write? And then how do I know it's from them?
Well, snail mail.
Right.
Yeah.
But they won't call you on the phone. If you get a call on the phone that says the IRS, it's not them.
Okay.
I'm pretty sure about that.
Now, Social Security will call.
They will.
They will. My dad got a call, but by then I was handling all his financial information. And he would always say, you'll have to talk to my CPA. So I called back this number thinking this is bogus. And the woman said, yes, I'm from the Social Security Fraud Department. And I go, how do I know that? And I said, you could be anybody. And she said, call Social Security. Here's my name. Ask for the fraud department. They will reconnect us. And I said, okay. I didn't wait for her to give me a phone number because she could have given me any number, right? So I Googled Social Security, called the number, asked for the fraud department, asked for this woman, they connected me. Somebody had gotten a hold of my dad's Social Security number and his address.
Oh.
They had called and changed his direct deposit for a Social Security amount. And it was 3 pieces. They had his phone number, his address, and his Social Security number. Her job 24 or 8 hours a day is to follow up on these calls and to call people to verify that they really put this through, which of course he hadn't. Which was just, it makes me so mad because my dad was at the time like 89 years old. And he goes, what would I do if I didn't have you?
Wow.
And I think about all those people who don't know.
yes, having an advocate that you trust in that community. I have a sister who relies on providers and things, and I always try to protect her as well, because there's a lot of people coming in and out of her home and yeah, different contexts. Okay, so that's kind of it. So whenever you're sitting down and just looking at what decisions should I make, I tell people draw these circles. I mean, it's a very simple chart to kind of look at, and when you're trying to make good decisions, just understanding that this is cybersecurity right there. That's as simple as you can make it.
Before you go, I would add to the vulnerability. Well, actually, 2 things. A lot of us in here have grandchildren. And a child's identity could be at risk, but they're not going to know that until they apply for a job or apply to college. So that information has been out there for years and years. So I'm personally very reluctant to put pictures of my grandbaby out there. I have them on my phone in case anybody wants to see. But don't put that stuff out there. And on the other end of the spectrum, we probably all have had folks in nursing homes. That's a very big threat. You know, don't have them lay their personal information around because people are in and out of there all the time, so.
Yeah. So the next one just talks about the different types of scams that are out there. And I don't know if you're gonna send this out or this was a lady that opened a not-for-profit about 4 years ago, and I think she does a really, really nice job. It's called there's links at the bottom, and it's called Scam Spotter or fightingcybercrime.org. And actually, this was a cheat. I kind of cut and pasted directly from her website. And if you go on there, she has videos for each one of those. And I think she does a really nice job. And this would also be a place that you could go and report a scam that happened to you. But like we had talked about, you know, the financial purchase scams. You just stated that you can see them on your credit card, right? People get your credit card number and then are placing, and they'll just start small.
Yeah,
$5, $2, seeing if you're gonna notice. How long does it take you not to notice? And then maybe I'll, you know, if you're not gonna notice, I'll put a bigger purchase in there. Or they'll just, sometimes they'll get in there, and if you're just doing some finance stuff, they've got 1,000 accounts. They're just taking $2, $5 at a time. They're still making some good money. Let's take the smaller stuff, right? I mean, guys, this is big business. You will not believe. I can go into the dark web and hire somebody to come in and ransomware you, do a DDoS attack, which is basically where you're just shut down availability to the companies. It's huge money, huge money in this space. You know, the imposter scams. You hear that a lot, like just romance scams, people saying that they're somebody that they're not. Really easy, going back to our kids. My daughter works retail, and I also I'm on a prayer chain for human trafficking, and she doesn't understand how diligent I was about her coming in and just, they Snapchat, like that he won't get her phone, the men won't get her phone number, but they will somehow find her Snapchat, because her name has to go on their receipt, goes out, and she doesn't understand how concerned I am about her and her age and the human trafficking piece of it. So kind of the same thing, the imposter. Who are they? All the fake ones that you guys see on Facebook. Anybody gets, I just got one on Facebook and I knew it was a scam, but what they did is it came from my high school group, and I basically said, look who passed away.
Oh,
Now,
yes.
that's not something that we usually.
I got it in a messenger thing.
Yeah, so I'm like, that was a link that was definitely trying to. So anything that's abnormal on my Facebook, I'm like you, I'm pretty shut down. I do a lot of, I'm gonna get off topic. Okay, so imposter scams, right? We know that there are people out there that are pretending to be something that they're not, and we have to really watch out for that. Hack devices and accounts. Going back to your passwords. Are they getting in? Do they know the information? You see a lot of that on, again, the Facebooks, the Instagrams. People will get into accounts and then they just send out messages because they're trying to see what other information they can get, the contacts that they can get. Can they make friends with you and create a relationship so that they can, I don't know, find out information. It's all recognizance. There's something that's called OSINT, and that's how people make their living. And the good part about OSINT is there's something called Trace Labs, and it's for missing children, for missing persons. And what they'll do is they'll hold an event once a year, and they have all these OSINT people. OSINT means what is OSINT? Online, it's basically open source intelligence, that's what it is, where you're just Googling stuff. And some of these people are so awesome that if you put a picture up, they can find out what that location is. So going back to the trace labs, if you hunt and you're doing cameras and any information that's out there, they'll send all of these leads in. And the goal is that they'll find these missing people, or these missing kids. That's really awesome. And that's great, because we're doing it for the good, right? We want to find people. But guess what? There's a whole network of the bad people doing the same thing, right? It's like you said, I post a picture of my grandkids, they might know that I have a beach house and I go there every 4th of July. Now I know that I have, 3 kids there. So things
How
like
often are you supposed to be changing your passwords?
you know what? The new rule is you don't have to change them, because what are you gonna do? You're probably gonna change it one number up. Right? Happy days
No.
1, happy days 2, happy days 3. My recommendation, and you'll see it a little bit later, is that you don't change passcodes, but you make them complex. Actually, my recommendation is if your financials, anything that's extremely important to you, you guys use a password manager. And it actually generates random codes for you. Like I have on my phone, I have LastPass, and I have it on my computer. So anything that I want to get into, I have to go into this password manager. It's an extremely complex passcode. But when I get in there, it has all my information. Wow, this is probably not where I should have put that. I'll give you guys, see, this is where you get too much information. Okay, to all the hackers out there who know that I know. Doing all that.
See, and I won't use a passcode manager because I'm afraid somebody can hack
Get into
into that and get all my passcodes, so I still have them written on a piece of paper.
And that's okay too, as long as that piece of paper though eventually gets into a safe deposit or someplace safe. But I'm trying to manage, I think between my financial records, healthcare for my whole family, auto insurance. I'm up to 50 passcodes. I can't keep 50 passcodes in my head. And at one time, I had a nice system, but as soon as a hacker figures out my system, I'm toast, right? Even think about my Hulu account, my Netflix, all of those take passcodes, right? And I don't care if I get hacked into those, but still, if somebody knew the thought process of me making up my passcodes, I can only make up so many unique ones. So if you don't want to do that, really 14 is where you need to be these days. 14 characters, complex, uppercase, lowercase numbers.
Linda, you mentioned you don't trust a passcode or password manager, which you can buy for a couple bucks a month, where they manage it. It's one code. There's a risk there. I agree with you, but there's far greater risk as to what you do with all your passwords written on a piece of paper. So it's all about risk. I mean, there's absolutely nothing that's risk free, but I would submit that a legitimate passcode manager is far better than most of what we do today.
I mean, it depends on how many she has. You might only have 5, then there's a good or bad, there's no good or bad way. It goes back to your risk tolerance, right? And everybody has a different risk tolerance. So that's where it goes, understand where you sit in all of this is why it's important. But yeah, it's one way to go. Or there's another out there, it's called a Yubico key, right? Because the next thing you're going to want to do a password manager is the multi-factor authentication, and we'll talk about that a little bit. So let's keep going. So then harassment and identity theft, we kind of talked about that. But that's a very good website to go to. I highly recommend it. The Scam Spotter and the scams are really good. So let's talk about then what we can do. And this is going to get more into the controls that we were talking about. Okay. Backing up your data, right? And that goes back to the resilient piece of it. And like you said, if the ransomware comes in, where are all my photos? Where's all my information? Where am I backing up my data? The best way to back up important data is the offline. If you really want to keep it, because data, anything that's on the internet or in the cloud has a chance of being compromised. So again, it depends on how important that data is to you. USB drives today come and they can have codes on them and can be very secure. That's one of the ways that you can do, we call it air gapped. Any information that's totally critical to you can be air gapped. But you can also save it on your computer, and if you're saving it on your computer, you can also save it to the cloud. Is everybody pretty good with using like a OneDrive or like I don't really save anything on my hard drive anymore. Everything is pretty much in the cloud or air gapped for me. But backing up your data, knowing again what it is you want to keep, what would happen. If something did happen to you, would you be able to tell your next trusted person where to go to get that data for you, right? Those are kind of things. And again, what data is important to you? Okay, let's go to the next one. This is probably going to be the best one. Keeping your smartphones in your phone. I can't tell you your biggest risk is in your pocket, guys. It truly, truly is. And how many times are people like, just download this app, just download this app. Well, this is nothing but a tracker for every single company that's out there wanting to know where you are, what you're doing, and collecting data on you. We had a gal come in from the Navy and open our eyes. For example, even if you turn off all tracking, the vibrations of your cell phone, they could still find out, like if two people were still in the same place, right? Which is so scary to me because I'm a privacy guru on top of that, right? So what I want to tell you about your cell phone is any app that you download, you go through the settings and you make sure that if you want that app on your phone, that it doesn't have, if you want it to have access to your contacts and your microphone and to everything, that's fine. But most of them you do not. Like if I'm downloading an application, they don't need to have access to my contacts. They don't need to have access to my pictures. But there's settings on every single one of those apps. And I think those of us too that have younger people that want to tell us to add this app or do this real quick because it makes it easier. Please be diligent about what's on your phone and how you're using it. One of the first things you need to do is make sure that when you go in that you don't auto connect to any Wi-Fi networks, right? There's a setting on your phone that basically says it has to ask you to connect before you do, right? That's one that's been out there for a while. And again, knowing the applications that you are downloading, because they can put malware on there and then track. And how many of us now are doing banking on your phone? Not that I recommend it. Actually, so Kevin Mitnick is he wrote 2 books. One of them that really got me interested into security and knowing how far people will go is I think it's on a wire, bird on the wire. But basically, and he wrote a privacy book. And he talks about like the privacy book about us trying to go completely offline. Think of a person, maybe a battered woman that wants to be completely offline, right? It is almost impossible for that person to go dark because of all the technology that's out there and what they use today. But one of the things that he was saying is because he's a hacker and he knows how to get in and what people will do, he has a computer for his financials and he has a computer for his like browsing the internet. So if you are browsing the internet, make sure your financials are down. You know, you're not into your banking app at the same time you're into anything else. Close everything else down, only open up your banking application. Even better, I know on some computers it'll let you create different accounts, right? You can log into them differently. Have different accounts for your banking. Like at home, when my kids were sharing the computer, they have, each one of them have their own accounts to go into. And access their own passwords. So the same thing, I just created one that I would go in and put all my financials on. So really think about at home, who has access. You're getting kids coming over, do they have access to your Wi-Fi? Are they downloading games? What games are they getting onto? Could anything be loaded if your computer's on the same thing they're on? Could that person hack into their device and then somehow get to yours? So those are things that we kind of need to think about.
Question,
Yeah.
are you more at risk if you get those on your phone than if you do it on your computer?
Be diligent on where you are, and if you're going to do that on your phone, I would install a VPN application.
So what is VPN? Because I was gonna, that's one of my questions for you. I
But
have it installed, but do you have to buy it or something?
you do,
Okay,
like, it's an app that you get, and basically it changes your IP address so that it can't be tracked. So I do the VPN.
Is there a VPN that you recommend? Because I had a VPN that it was then bought by hackers. And then I read, like reading about it, that it was like, okay, that's not a good VPN to use because that's gonna get your information stolen. Is there a particular one that you would recommend?
I would do more research on that, but I use Avast.
Avast?
Okay, that's what I have on my
what is it?
phone, Avast, AVAST. But I've had it on here for a while. But yes. That way I know when I'm connecting to the internet, that it's as secure as can be. So yes, that's one thing you can do if you're going to pay online. Oh, yes, always make sure Google Chrome, your Chrome is always coming out with updates. Your phone are always coming out with updates. Always make sure you guys have the latest firmware software, because what they're doing on a regular basis is checking for bugs. So if there's something out there, make sure that you update. Yeah. So let's talk then about is everybody using a pen to get into their phone? Anybody using their biometrics, their thumbs and
Face,
face?
yeah,
Okay,
yeah, and I have a pin too.
right.
So, and I was wondering, is it safe to store your passwords? Like, on my phone, I can't possibly remember every password. At home, when I'm at home, I have my password book. But I tend to store my passwords, I'll save that password and it'll recognize me and then put it in, and is that bad?
So probably where the password is being saved is on your Chrome. Right, where's it being, like when it says, when you're searching the internet, are they saving it in your Chrome or is it in something? Okay, so challenge number one is we need to know where they're being saved. If you're saving them somewhere on your phone, like if they're an application, my guess is though, when you're searching the internet, Google Chrome will allow you to save your passcodes. Don't recommend doing that because Google Chrome is very easy to get in.
Okay.
And
So just check never
yeah,
when they give you the option
yes. Yes.
to save it.
No, I don't recommend saving them on your phone. Like I said, it's one of the easiest things to hack. But that's where the password manager. I have one password manager, but I keep it on my phone and I keep it on my computer. So that when I want to get onto my apps on my phone, I just go to the password manager to tell me that as well. So go back and think about what you're using your phone for. And if you can only do, if applications on there are not things that you're that concerned about, that if they got your passcode, then. But if you're doing any of your financials or anything, checking, I'd be a little bit more diligent about where you're storing those.
And one thing I never do is use free Wi-Fi if it's not secure. Ever.
Don't use free
Are you
apps either.
safer using data?
Not being connected to the internet? Okay.
Yep, using your own data applications, using a VPN will keep you the safest. Any other questions about your tablets and your smartphones?
So we have fun.
We got.
Oh, my.
we got-
Yeah,
What was Kevin's last name for the two books?
Mitnick,
Mitnick?
yeah, Mitnick, MITNICK. Yeah, he has one on privacy that I think is really, really good. Okay, 5 minutes. Well, let's go down to the individual security recap. Yeah. Nope, one more. This is kind of. Okay. So things that we kind of talked about, we're backing up your data, enabling multi-factor. Everybody know what I'm talking about there, multi-factor authentication. Bank is really big on doing that. Your banking, are they sending you a text? How are you guys doing your multi-factor authentication? By text? Okay. Would encourage you to go in and look at maybe an authenticator app instead of a text message for that. A lot of times your banks will, you have your security settings and how you can have your multi-factor come to you. An authenticator app, there's Google, there's Microsoft, but basically it generates a code for you and then you put that code in. That's SMS, multi-factor is great. SMS, email, authenticator. Good, better, best. If you want to think about how to do multi-factor. Again, we talked about check the email address domain, right? When you're getting an email and they're asking you strange questions or make sure that you're dragging over your email address to see where it's really coming from. We talked about the password management. Hovering over URLs to click before you check for legitimacy. Read end user license agreements, go to privacy and security settings. Like I said, anytime you're downloading any type of application, go to the security and privacy settings, set up your multi-factor authentication, set up what they have access to, and make sure you understand how they are working their privacy. And make sure they're not saying that they're selling your information on the web. I mean, it's really important that you understand what they're doing with the information they're gathering from you. Data's worth a lot of money. Always use a VPN, we talked about that. Disable location services and microphone access where not needed. Again, going into your phone settings. There's another good one that I didn't put up here. It's called Pay It Forward. And it's two gentlemen that basically every time there's an iOS or an Android update, they will go in and they'll tell you what settings you need to make sure that you are putting on the phone so that you have the most privacy and security. I follow them regularly. Because Apple's always doing things. They're always changing. They always want to know where you can get your data. So you need to know where your data is going. Software updates. And the last one on here is, have I been pawned? That is a great way to see if any of your passcodes have been out on the network.
What did you say?
What's it?
It's one.
Yes,
Have I been pawned.com.
it's PAWNED on.com.
Yeah, go in there and put in
Yeah.
your email address and see if
What is it? Oh, sorry. Oh, sorry, no way, that's right.
There's no.
PWNED.
Okay.
Yeah, good call.
So that's if your password's been compromised.
Yeah.
And PW.
Send this out.
Yeah.
All right, well.
Makes you want to use your phone, doesn't it?
Again, it just goes back to your risk and knowing and understanding, you know. how much risk you want to take, because the phones are very convenient. The computers are very convenient. I can't imagine I remember dial-up. Wow, I have no patience for that anymore, right? But yeah, just understand your risk and know that you are a target. The information that you're putting out there is valuable to somebody. And if it's not your information that they're trying to get to, you might be trying to get to somebody else in your circle.
We as, well, just as citizens, we're entitled to free credit reports 3 times a year. Call Experian, TransUnion, Equifax. And they'll send you, they have to send you a credit report 3 times a year.
And some of the security on the last pass, I used Norton Security that's monitoring all my credit cards and accounts. Avast on the VPN, we're monitoring all my email addresses and my passcodes. So the tools are out there to try to help you stay protected and that your information isn't hitting the dark web.
LifeLock would be.
Yeah, LifeLock.
Yeah.
The only thing is, I'm gonna give LifeLock a bad. I tried, my MFA is messed up and I can't get any response for them to help me fix it. So I'm not gonna say I'm a proponent of Norton LifeLock at the moment, and I can't.
They're very good success, to be honest. I've been on conference calls when
Okay.
my numbers, my finances have been compromised. I've gotten on to conference calls with the bank.
Good, yes.
You need to hook her up.
Yeah, well, I think it's because they don't know. Think of it, I could be a bad guy, I'm trying to get my MFA corrected, right? Who wants to deal with me and make a big mistake that I'm the bad guy trying to get into somebody's account?
So Lisa, so much has changed even in the past probably 5 years.
Oh, yeah.
How do we stay up to date going forward? Where's a resource? Unless you want to come back. Yeah.
So, there's a lot of information out there. Like I said, the website that I gave you is a very good place to start on scamming.
Okay.
There's a whole division that's out there, if you want to do it more for the not-for-profit organization that is doing, and they're giving grant money to churches, and they call it houses of worship. Where they're looking at the security and helping, and there's some information also on there from that standpoint. So
But as individuals,
as individuals, like I said, that's the website that I gave you. I think
Yeah.
that's a
Okay.
good start.
And we should close in prayer,
Okay.
but I will send this PowerPoint out. And a link to the recording too. One thing I'm remembering is Jesus' words, be as wise as serpents and as innocent as doves. And that's the balance, we don't want to be foolish and be harmed because we were not as wise as serpents. But we, at the same time, want to be kind and loving and safe and help others. So that's the tension, the balance. But we sure want to thank Lisa. And this is something we'll need to keep an ongoing conversation about and education about. Let us pray. Oh God, thank you. Thank you for Lisa's gifts and wisdom and her generosity with her time and talents. And Lord, we pray that you would bless us and bless your church, bless your people, help us indeed to be as wise as serpents and as innocent as doves. Help us to share this information and help us to keep learning. In Jesus' name we pray, and all God's people say, amen. Okay, God bless you. We'll see you in worship.